recognize the gentleman from Iowa, Mr. Feenstra, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Yarmouth and Ranking Member Smith. And I want to thank Director Swagel for being here. My question is, on pages 31 and 32 of your analysis, you mentioned that the expiration of the temporary provisions of the 2017 Tax Act, including the expiration of most of the provisions affecting individual income taxes at the end of 2025 and the phase out of bonus depreciation by the end of 2026, is projected to temporarily slow down the economic growth. That is a real concern to me. Looking at the economic growth rates you project after 2025, do your projections consider the damage to the economic growth and opportunity that would accompany an increase in the federal tax burden from the expiration of these tax and job cuts? Could you answer that?
Oh, yes, we do. So we have in 2018, CBO's analysis showed the impact of the 2017 Tax Act in boosting economic growth, boosting business investment and growth, and concomitantly the expiration of the individual side provisions. We have that as reducing growth, that economic growth and job creation. That's in our baseline.
Okay, so that is very significant. I mean, if those go away, if those tax cuts go away, I mean, this could be pretty significant reduction in economic growth. Is that fair to say?
That there is a slowdown. Now, in our baseline, we assume that the Fed would react to it and cut interest rates. So that's why the baseline has some sort of a modest slowdown. That's because we're anticipating that the Fed would react to it, that the Fed would see it coming and react to it in part.
Right,
but there'd be an economic impact.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you said that. There would be truly an economic impact. I want to transition over to the forecast that you state on our trust funds, and they're set to expire in the next several years. We got some real problems, and I understand the CBO is required by law to assume that the trust funds will make full payments after they expire. However, on page 127 of your report, it notes all active trust funds, including Social Security, Medicare Part A, and highway trust funds, are projected to ultimately increase the debt by $14 trillion over the next 10 years. Director Swagel, can you explain to the committee the seriousness of not mitigating the spending costs of these programs and the catastrophic effects that could exist if we don't start looking at these programs and how to fund them as we move forward?
No, absolutely. And in some sense, the trust funds represent the fiscal challenge not being over the horizon, but really right in front of us. And the trust funds, in some sense, are accounting devices that to redeem the special purpose bonds and the trust funds, the Treasury has to raise revenue just in the same way it does to fund any other spending. And so that table is table B2 on page 127, as you mentioned, that shows the the deficit impacts of the trust funds over the next 10 years. And it's nearly $13.8 trillion, nearly $14 trillion.
Yeah, this to me is so serious. And unfortunately, the administration and the majority party are not even taking a look at this. And it's something that we just got to get our arms around. One other thing, it was stated yesterday that the U.S. economy contracted 1.5% on its annualized basis in the first quarter of this year. The downgrade revision of the GDP to me is very concerning. And it was noted that the contraction was partially attributed to the U.S. spending more on imports, with us reducing U.S. exports or on domestic goods. The administration has clearly showed that trade is not a priority. It has not filled a lot of the trade positions and in essence has not effectively completed any unilateral or bilateral trade deals. Can you explain how critical trade is to our economic growth as we move forward?
Absolutely. And trade is a critical part of our economy. As you said, it was an important factor in what happened in the first quarter. We see some of that unwinding over the rest of the year. We expect a bit better growth in other countries that should boost our exports. But over time, I mean, trade is a critical factor in the U.S. in supporting growth, in leading to lower inflation, and also boosting productivity. Right, larger markets mean through trade help American firms, and whereas a greater variety for American households, boosts their choice and lowers their prices. And that is trade.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I appreciate, Director, what you're saying. I mean, trade is so critical, and it just, again, doesn't seem like this administration has a handle on it, doesn't care about it, doesn't fill positions, is not doing any bilateral, unilateral trade deals. I'm just so disappointed there. So thank you, and I yield back.
Gentlemen.